Hello, my name is Robert Weston. I'm the current Mathematics Division Chairperson, and this is a short session on completing math assignments, how, what, and why. I do have one student participant here with us. They cannot speak and can't share video, so I'm just going to kind of go through my spiel. If the student would like to add stuff in the chat, feel free. I've already asked them to complete the survey, just giving you a sense of what to focus on in this session. I'll go through all this information, but really kind of hit home the kind of other pieces and maybe ask for some questions from our student. So in today's session, we'll discuss the following: how to learn in a math class, how to read math textbooks. We'll also talk about math videos for a minute or two, how to complete homework, how to complete online discussion forums. I know that can be a really tricky thing in an online math class. I know our student here is not taking an online math class. However, it is still a tricky thing to navigate. And then how to prepare for exams and assessments. So how to learn in a math class. So here I kind of have this idea of a learning loop. And it's this idea that in a course or kind of in life in general, we'll learn an idea or concept, we'll apply it, we'll get feedback, and then we'll reflect on what that feedback was telling us. I'm going to go ahead and kind of break this down a little bit, and I'll ask some questions about kind of all these different components. You know, we have projects, discussion forums, grades in general, in-class activities, note-taking, faculty comments on work. And I'd ask us to kind of figure out, well, where do these all kind of fit, right, in this learning loop idea? So let's think about, just lectures in the first place. Where might this kind of go in this learn, apply, feedback, and reflect loop? I'll type that up in the chat. Does it go by learn? Does it go by apply? By learn, yeah. So it says, yeah, it probably goes by learn, probably kind of like the very start of learning something, right? So we can imagine that in a class, we have lots of different kind of, components, and they all fit here somehow. Homework, I would say, kind of fits between kind of learn and apply. You're kind of applying what you know, but also you're still learning at the same time. Projects are definitely more of an apply area for sure. Discussion forums, yeah, I think that still fits with the homework as well, right? It's an assignment where you're trying to figure out, what the actual material is telling you, but also you're trying to apply it somewhere. That's a really big thing about discussion forums, right? You are learning by applying. You're trying to answer some questions in a group format somehow, or maybe not. And you're trying to kind of construct that knowledge with other people as you discuss it. It's not that everyone needs to have the totally 100% right answer. It's that you're working collaboratively, right? You're kind of using different aspects of your brain to, talk about this information and hopefully kind of building those synapses up. Exams, I'm going to push and just say that fits right in between apply and feedback, right? Exams are really a moment for the faculty member to let you know that your understanding of the course material is or isn't on track. It is not about you being an A student. It is not about a student being, a good person, right? People can fail a course and be wonderful human beings, and people can totally get all A's and maybe not be great human beings. But this is a moment where we kind of look at, do you know this information or not? And then faculty provide feedback. We'll talk more about that later. Textbooks and videos, you can imagine that fits in the learn area. A lot of faculty will kind of switch the order of kind of textbooks and videos and lecture. There's valid reasons for doing both, right? A very valid reason for doing a lecture first and then a textbook or video. And then there's also good reasons to do textbooks and videos and then lectures, right? They kind of, depending on the goals of the course, they really could change. Faculty comments on work are absolutely part of feedback. We'll talk more about using that. Note-taking, right, whether this is in the textbook or a part of lectures, that definitely fits in kind of the learn piece here. Again, that can really vary where that fits. In-class activities, many faculty use those as kind of a learning/applying kind of piece. Some of them use them as strictly learning, some of them use them strictly as applying, and some faculty, like myself, use them kind of in the middle of figuring out, how do we actually know what this material is and how do I apply it? So the last one here, grades. Grades are absolutely feedback. And you can see that in this whole kind of learning loop, we really focused on learn, apply, and feedback as having components of a course. The reflect piece is really, for lots of reasons I can't get into, left to students. When you get feedback from either grades or faculty comments, what you do then is up to you. And whether you want to use those to kind of change how you learn, what you do when taking notes, when you read textbooks, watch videos, that is up to the student. And we don't really talk a lot about that, quite frankly. This is an area where we don't have like a lot of course components, right? A lot of things that you have that you're expected to do. However, faculty would be very willing to talk to you about, well, now that I have this information, what do I do with it, right? So use those office hours, student hours, and we'll talk more about that as well. But I just want to kind of, really reference the fact that we have course components about learning, applying, and feedback, but not so much about reflecting. And that's kind of a hidden part of how to learn in a math class. This doesn't end, right? That reflect piece doesn't really kind of transfer to what you're doing. It kind of happens again and again through a course, right? After an exam, you might get your grades back and realize, oh gosh, like I am on the wrong track. I need to do something different. And hopefully in this session, you'll see what to do there. So let me kind of go back to my presentation here. Slideshow. All right. Okay. So again, learning loop happens multiple times. Usually, for a lot of faculty, they set it on 2 or 3 week schedules. Some of them kind of do a whole midterm process, right? But you will have multiple loops here. The question is, what do you do with one loop or the other, right? How do you kind of take what you've learned about not just the mathematics, but taking classes from this professor, and how do you kind of improve what you do next time? All right. Again, I talked about those different course components. Some of them are assignments and assessments, but then there's a lot of other stuff students should do. And you could just do those assignments and maybe get a C. There is a lot of other things you can do outside of a grade. Things like reading the textbook before and after class, which we'll get to. Meet with tutors and online tutoring, right? There's tons of that available here at Clark, either online or face-to-face. Meet with colleagues for study sessions, meet with professors during student hours, practice productively. This last piece we'll talk a little bit about when we get to the homework, but there's a lot of things you can be doing outside of the actual assignments, right? Or how you do those assignments that could really impact your understanding of the course material. I bring this up, this idea of a credit hour. This is the federal definition. 1 hour of classroom or direct faculty instruction and a minimum of 2 hours or out of class student work each week for approximately 15 weeks for one semester, or 10 to 12 for a quarter hour. So this is the kind of federal requirement that we are mandated to say for every hour of class time, there is about 2 hours of work outside of that. And your faculty member will break that up in lots of different ways, right? Maybe half of that is before class, where you're reading textbooks and doing other activities. It may all be after class, right? Where your class is kind of a kickoff to you doing that coursework. That's a really good question to ask your faculty member. Hey, how much time should I be spending, before class or after class, for this classroom? I will also say hybrid classes are a little bit different, right? They only meet less than the credit hours, and yet there's additional time that's expected students are supposed to spend there. So this kind of like 2 hours outside of class for every 1 hour in class, that changes with hybrid because you are expected to do some of that instruction outside of class. Okay. So any questions there? Anything that is curious or not? I'll give our student a moment to write a question if they'd like. All right, moving on. So how to read math textbook. So here we have this beautiful drawing of a Slavic artist from 1941, dragons and princesses and princes and other non-binary royalty or whatever. We read novels in a certain way, looking for character and plot and things that happen, that action oriented, right? Whether it's fantasy, science fiction, romance, literature, whatever. We read books in kind of a very sequential fashion. With a math textbook, we don't read it the same way. We read it very differently. We try to be as kind of active as possible. So being active means taking notes, trying questions on your own before you read them, and attempting those kind of your turn questions throughout the book, right? Reading in a math textbook requires pencil and paper. It's not just this passive reading of words. Use those examples to explore your understanding. One thing I do, I ask students to do a lot, is cover up their example and then slowly review, pull the paper down to reveal what the example question is, read that question stem, right, what the question is, and then try it on your own on that piece of paper, right? That's how you're actively engaging with material. And then once you made that attempt, you can kind of pull your paper down further and see what the solution actually is. That way you can kind of see, am I on the right track? Am I kind of getting the big idea here? And if not, you have some direct feedback of, oh no, I missed this thing, or I forgot this rule or something. That's one way to kind of use your textbooks in a little more of an interactive fashion. Definitions are critically important. If you are taking statistics, linear algebra, differential equations, calculus, you're going to encounter like a whole list of definitions the first couple of weeks or so. You need to know those terms. And even more importantly than knowing them, you need to use them. You need to kind of use those fluently with your colleagues, with your faculty member, and reading is part of that. Connect information to what you already know. It is really problematic when students kind of see their course material separated from their kind of lived experience. That's not what we're supposed to be doing here. We're supposed to kind of explore these topics and ideas to improve your life in some way. Sure, it might not be for a while, right? You might not use differential equations until you get to statics and dynamics, whatever. But as long as you're kind of building on what you already know to connect that new material, you're going to know that in a lot more of a better way than someone who just kind of separates it and says, this is math class work, this is separate. Watching videos, exactly the same thing. We don't have like great, HBO produced videos, generally in higher education. However, the way that we watch these videos should also be different. It should also, quite frankly, be active. You should be kind of trying those questions out. You should be doing things that connect what you're watching in the video to things in the textbook setting. Part of that is using that pause button, right? A video, if you just kind of like let it go, your brain will start to kind of dissociate, right? Using that pause button at the start of a question, say, and then you trying that question, that is you engaging with the actual video in a way that's much more, will produce much better results than just kind of passively watching the whole thing. Use that pause button, right? Try that question and hit play. You'll have instant feedback as to whether you're on the right track or not. Use that pause button to write down definitions or go back to your notes or do any other million other things to help your brain connect to what the video is saying to your course material. And again, connect information to what you already know. If we kind of segregate things for like, this is math class, and this is physics, and this is biology, we're going to have a bad time. Don't do that. Build those connections. That's what we want to see. Okay. Any questions about watching videos? I know that was something our student wanted to kind of see. Question, how do you not get bored or distracted when writing notes? I find it hard to do something that doesn't have some sort of personal component and it's just writing stuff down. It doesn't feel like much of an activity. Do you disagree? It can absolutely be really kind of passive and boring. I 100% agree. There are some classes you have to take in college that you frankly just kind of have to take, kind of have to get through. I had to do it. Most people have to do it. And staying engaged with material does require some other techniques. One thing that I have had success with many students is something called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is this idea where you're going to focus for 20 minutes at a time and then take a break afterwards, right? It's this idea that you can do anything for like 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, do your work. right? And so Pomodoro is really a part of just focusing for a short period of time and then taking a rest afterwards. If you don't, right, if you kind of just force yourself to do stuff for an hour, your understanding of that course material will go down over time. So to do things in 20-minute blocks, though, you need to be really strategic. You can't just kind of hope to do it, closer to the due date. It's actually much more beneficial to do Pomodoro when you have lots of time available to you, um, or or you don't have a lot of time available to you. You might say, I'm going to do as much as I can in 3 20-minute chunks, and then I'm going to move on to a different class, right? There is a lot of kind of benefit to really structuring your time that way, to really force yourself to say, if I can't get it done in this amount of time, uh, you know, I can't get it done, or that I'm just going to do as much as I can in this period of time. So hopefully that helps our student here, with this idea that, how do I stop myself from getting bored? I mean, you're going to need to plan some breaks, right? So, when you break, take a real break, get up, go do something else. During the pandemic, I use this myself quite often. I would set myself like half-hour timers, and I would say, get this done in half an hour, and then afterwards you get to go outside and do whatever, right? I would usually go to my shop for a little bit and kind of, tinker with some wood or, break something. But giving yourself that kind of like alternating experience, I think, can be really helpful. It's also called interleaving, this idea where you're kind of focused on one thing and then you attempt something else, right afterwards, and you kind of switch back and forth, right? Yeah, yeah, yes, maybe I'll try to layer in other more interesting activities to avoid fatigue as opposed to doing all the notes all in one go. Yeah, I absolutely agree, about kind of trying to do everything all at once in one big chunk. Your brain likes novelty, it wants breaks. Give yourself those and give yourself real breaks, right? Get off of your computer for a little bit. And I say this as much to myself as I say it to other students. Getting away from your computer, that will give your brain a break. Okay. So then how to complete homework. So let me kind of go with a very basic kind of, this is very general, but most faculty would probably agree with some part of this, that the purpose of homework is for you to learn how to apply course ideas, learn from your mistakes, and build a deeper understanding of the course material. Um, so hopefully you're attempting homework after maybe an in-class activity and reading, or after a lecture and some other kind of component there. Um, the whole point for homework is that you're actively applying what you've been learning. So with that idea, right, which student is doing the homework that is most aligned to this purpose? Is it Jim attempts a question, checks that he got the answer in the back of the book, and moves on? If he doesn't, he sets that question aside to get help later. Nia attempts a few questions at once and will then check that she got the answers in the back of the book. If she doesn't, she knows to review her notes from class and/or read the textbook. So could our student share which student is doing, Jim or Nia, who is doing homework most aligned to the purpose? So our student says Nia, and I would generally agree, right? Nia is not just kind of nitpicking this question and this answer, but more general, do I get this concept? Do I get this whole idea, this computation, whatever it is? So that's something about homework that I think many students will do, is they'll kind of just do the minimum to kind of answer all those questions without really connecting, like, what are these bigger ideas? This relates back to that deliberate practice idea I mentioned earlier. If we're actively like trying to get better at doing this thing, we're going to approach that in a much different way than if we just want to get our homework done. One of those things is this idea of, how do you actually do your homework? Is it a recipe? Are you looking for recipes for every question to kind of follow, and produce the answer? Or are you looking at this as a puzzle? Are you looking at this as something where I have these big concepts and ideas and I need to put them together in a way that produces a result somehow? This is something I would really push with, frankly, all students. If we start thinking that every single math question is about finding that recipe, we're going to have a hard time. we're really looking at this in kind of silos and individual little questions and not seeing the continuum of the bigger idea, right? That's what Neo was trying to do here, trying to see that continuum of that bigger idea by recognizing she's trying to apply these different concepts and ideas. I had flashed on here the definition of a credit hour. And, if we're getting our homework done in less than an hour, we are probably not doing what we should be doing. We should probably rethink that a little bit and really think, what is this question asking me? And do I know what the solution is? I most likely don't have to say this, but using Chegg or other sources for solutions for homework, it's not going to be helpful, right? If you do that, great, you've got the homework done. What are you going to do for exams? What are you going to do for quizzes? What are you going to do for projects? Getting help is a absolutely necessary part of any math class. As math division chair, I expect every student to get help at least once in their class, at least once, if not weekly, if not like every other day, especially for our upper division courses. You should not be attempting those on your own. You really do need a support network to support you in your learning. So here are a lot of different resources in getting help here at Clark. First off, other students. Forming study groups is one of the best things you can do to solidify understanding. Yeah, you have to manage, a bunch of other people and schedules are tough and so on. However, I attribute, my bachelor's degree to the fact that I had 20 students and myself, taking classes together for 2 years. And you really, that frankly is the only way I got my degree. I would really suggest that for many other students too. Online tutoring here at Clark and tutoring in general is really useful. Do come prepared. Do not just come in saying, I have no idea what's happening. Tell me everything I need to know. You really should come in with a specific set of questions and say, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then ask those bigger questions, right? Try to see the connection between the questions you're asking and saying, oh, it seems like I don't get this bigger idea. Can we talk about that more? Ask for advice and suggestions. The tutor you're across from is a student themselves in most cases, and is also struggling or has been successful in the classes that you're taking. So, think about what they might do for different questions or different topics. Faculty office hours, also called student hours for many of us. This is your time to come in and ask questions. We are literally, in our offices waiting for you to come by with your question, whatever it is. Never think you're bothering us coming to our office hours or student hours. That is literally why we have them for you. So please use them. Again, come prepared. Don't ask just to go back over the lecture or something, right? Ask specific questions saying, hey, 12 on the homework, can we talk about this more? I would also say if you miss class, don't expect to walk into office hours and just kind of get the lecture again. The faculty member did their job and had that lecture, had that activity. If you miss it, that is up to you to make up. Talk to your other colleagues, right? Getting help from other students includes getting notes from them. You absolutely can ask your faculty member for notes or anything they might share. In my case, I do a lot of activities in my classes, and so I will share those out with students. But there is no expectation that they must. That is up to the faculty member to decide. Again, your faculty member was a student. They went through this stuff. Ask for their advice and suggestions, especially about how to prepare for an exam, right? What might they do? Don't ask what's going to be on the exam. We'd never like that question. That, really, it's not demoralizing, but it really, gets around this idea that our classes are about understanding big ideas. And your faculty member is there because they love mathematics and they love helping students. So, honor that a little bit and focus on the bigger ideas. Clark College Student Services has disability support services, counseling, many, many other things I can't list on here because I don't have the room, but please use those. They are there for you. You pay for them when you pay for your classes. please, by all means, use them. Any questions from our student about homework or getting help or anything like that? All right, well, oh yeah, maybe trying to get into e-tutoring. Yeah, over in your course, in Canvas, I should say, there is a button to get to tutoring. If you go over to, I believe, help, there's lots of good things here. Ask your instructor a question is a great one. I think there is, oh, I thought there was a link for tutoring. There is academic technology resources. I don't think that goes to the same place for students. I thought there was, I suppose not. In a lot of classes, you'll see, yeah, there is one, but not for the stats class. Yeah, there should be one over here. Okay, something for me to fix. In any event, there should be e-tutoring links in Canvas for you to access. There's also, on-campus tutoring as well. All right, this was meant to show kind of sequentially, but how to complete online discussion forums. So online discussion forums, I would agree, are kind of a weird thing in math classes. You have to remember that, we put online discussion forums somewhere between learn and apply. So it's not that you have to know everything in your discussion forum, at least not for the most part, but you're asked to apply it to kind of see, am I on the right track or not, right? And so many times faculty will ask students to kind of write a post and then reply to two other students. Yeah, no, students asking, there's a tutor for statics. And no, that is a different thing entirely. Statics and statistics are two entirely different courses. Statics refers to engineering classes, civil engineering usually, of like how to build buildings and make sure they don't fall down. So really important class, but not one most students will take. But back to online discussion forums, the very kind of clear thing, most easiest thing to do is read the directions in full. Read them before you think about posting anything. It is really important that students kind of read through the full directions because there might be lots of different kind of components and parts and expectations that you don't understand until you read through the whole thing. Yes, this takes time, but you got to slow down. You got to try answering those questions. Read the rubric. Rubrics are how faculty grade your submissions. They will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get an A. Make sure that you know the actual due dates. So in Canvas, it only allows for one due date for a discussion forum. And that's kind of a shame because most faculty have multiple due dates for one discussion forum. That discussion forum due date might be like when the first post is due, and then you have other posts due. That due date might be when all of the posts are due, and you were supposed to do the first post 4 days ago, right before that due date. But you have to read the directions. It's the only way to really know. Treat your discussion forums like assignments. They're not, I mean, yes, you're talking to other students most of the times, but it's not like it's, something you will be graded on for a lot of your classes. You really need to treat them seriously and with the appropriate attention. Read faculty feedback and use it to improve your next set of posts. So just like with the feedback loop I talked about earlier, right? That feedback you get from faculty should inform what you do on that next loop, how you do your assignments, what you should be doing, the timing of those things, right? So, we write those things in order to help you improve. We do not write those things to, to judge you or blame you or something, right? We really want to see improvement on those things we identified. And the only way to do that is for you to read those and take those into consideration when you do these activities. Things not to do in an online discussion forum. Write empty posts. As a faculty member, I think we all despise these kind of like, you wrote a great post. I really like your work. It makes me think. Uh, don't write those. If you don't know what to write, talk to your faculty member. We would love to hear that question, right, from you more than having to grade and mark down things that are not relevant to the mathematics that you're discussing in your discussion forum. Don't do that, please. Don't blow them off. They do usually become a significant portion of your grade for lots of reasons, one of which is our accreditation and the quality of our degrees. You know, you are expected to, you know, weekly at the very least, you know, interact with the course. Not doing them, that's really bad because discussion forums, the expectation is that you're talking to other students and kind of building and forming this knowledge together. If you don't do those, you really can't make those up, right? That was being held, that activity was being held at a certain time in a certain place with everyone's level of understanding at that point in time. Trying to go back to those conversations with like your current understanding, which is probably well developed after doing those activities or homework, it's not the same. It's apples and oranges. So making up discussion forums can be really hard, if not impossible to do. Don't necessarily rely solely on text. I know you're asked to type up your discussion forum, but you can take pictures, you can insert tables, you can embed equations in them, right? Use all those tools. Canvas has lots of different options for students on how to enter stuff in. See your faculty announcements. Your faculty announcements use exactly the same text editor that your discussion forums do. Don't keep writing the same post even after faculty provided feedback. Read that feedback, go to your grades, open that up, see what we've actually said and according to the rubric. Again, we're there to kind of do those things. We write those things to help you. Writing your post at the very last minute hurts everyone, especially if your discussion forum has a, you know, one post and two reply structure. You know, it's really going to hurt everyone if you're waiting the last minute to get it done. Getting them done early gets your mind on other things you might want to focus on more. I know the focus here was not on online courses, but any questions about any of that? Okay, great. So, how to prepare for exams and assessments. This is the big one. I think most students kind of want to know, how do I get ready? How do I prepare for that? First thing, start early. In fact, I might even say, don't even start early, make it part of what you do, right? If you get all your assignments done in like 3 hours a week, there's so much more you could be doing to get ready for any of these things, right? Any assessments you have in a class. To do that, be active, right? Do not just passively kind of write things down or read things. Again, the goal here is to, you know, actively engage your brain in order to help you understand and know the material so that you can apply it during the assessments. Emulate the testing environment as much as possible. Your books have, you know, end of section homework. They have end of chapter reviews. Most of our online homework systems, you can kind of redo questions. There's tons of ways you can kind of, you know, make this as close to what the actual testing environment is. Faculty will even let you in the room sometimes, right? You know, when classes aren't being held to practice or study. One big thing I recommend to students is that as you're kind of going through the course material, or maybe after a certain point, try writing it all down. Try writing down all the big ideas in 1 to 2 pages. That's going to be a really helpful exercise for you to kind of figure out, well, what is the most important stuff? What are these different ideas? Let me kind of pull these apart. Try writing your own questions that test if you know the material. This is an incredibly difficult task if you actually put real thought into it. If you copy and paste homework questions, okay, you know, maybe that's helpful. But you know, trying to think through what is a question that would understand, you know, What was a question that would test my understanding of difference between observational and experimental studies? What is a question that would test my understanding on using the difference quotient in calculus? What is a question that would test my understanding of how to factor binomials, right? That last one is kind of interesting because you can start to realize I can't just kind of make up numbers. The actual patterns of those numbers tell us something about the structure of how you factor those binomials. That is incredibly important. So, but things like that, right? Once you start realizing or trying to write these questions, you really start to get into like the deeper structure of like what's actually going on here in this idea. Make sure you know what you are and aren't allowed during a test. Read the syllabus in full. Make sure you talk to your instructor about this. Do not think you're bothering us about this. Make sure to do this. This is really important. A test isn't when you should be figuring stuff out. You're meant to show what you know. If you're still figuring stuff out during a quiz, not a good time to be doing that, right? It is really a moment for you to kind of demonstrate what you know to the best of your abilities. And that may include doing studying, right? Actually sitting down and trying to figure out, how do I remember this information, or how do I think about this information? You should not be still figuring it out by that time. If you're asking your brain to do stuff, you need to give your brain what it needs. And the biggest thing you can give your brain is a good night's sleep. Quite seriously, full 8 hours. Yes, it takes time. Yes, you got other things going on, but your brain cannot function without sleep. There's some meme online, you'll die before, not going to sleep than drinking water or something, which I need. I don't know about that exactly, but it is incredibly important to your mental cognition and functioning. So please, good night's sleep. So during the test, right, what should you do? So first off, focused and calm. I know many students kind of get in the spiral of, well, if I don't do well in this test, I'll fail this class and I'll end up, in a van down by the river or something, and they'll spiral out of control. You can only control the thing in front of you, right? But you can only control yourself, right? But you can only do the thing in front of you. And it's that test, that assessment, whatever it is. Do it to the best of your ability. Show that you know the material. Your faculty member cannot grade what you know. Your faculty member can grade what you write on the paper. That is a very different thing. And that requires not just knowing the material, but knowing how to write the material, the mathematical notation to indicate so, and knowing that, knowing how to do that in the first place. Your exams should not be the first time you do this. Your exams should be the 100th time you do this in order to demonstrate that you know the material. And you can't do that unless you've been practicing before, right? You've been taking notes, you've been doing homework, you've been writing out your own work, even if your homework is through, an online homework system. This is a really kind of, very, test taking 101. Read over the test and answer the hardest questions first. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That should not say hardest. Read over the test and answer the easiest questions first. I apologize. I edited that a little bit too late, I think. Read over the test and answer the easiest questions first, least easiest to you, right? That way you kind of got that done. You can move on to those harder questions later on. This too shall pass. This is something I say to myself when I'm really encountering some difficulties. It kind of goes back to that first point there, but this will be over soon. And then you're going to have to figure out, how do I deal with what I just did? If you practiced, if you put in the time and effort beforehand, great, you're fine. If you didn't, if you did not prepare for an assessment or a test, you'll have things to do, right? You've kind of, made life more complicated for yourself in whatever way. So, but know that it's temporary. It'll, you'll move on with your life. During the test, you use all your time, every single minute of it. Go through your questions, go back through your questions. Try not to edit your answers too much, right? Try not to kind of, or do big erasing of lots of stuff. If everything was wrong for whatever reason, circle it, exit out, and then attempt it again. Never erase big chunks on your exams. We want to see that information. You know, if a computation is wrong, if there's something very specific, great, correct that. But your first instinct is probably one you should trust. Okay, so you prepared for the test, you took it, and now you got it graded back in your hands. And now the question is, well, what do I do with it? Well, if we think back to our kind of learning loop, that's feedback. That is valuable information that you need to kind of use to change what you do for that next test or that next iteration of the course. So what does the grade tell you? Well, I would like students to go through this kind of trying to figure out what kind of error did I make? Not just I made an error, but like, where did that error come from? And I have here being unprepared, conceptual error, computational error, or a careless error. To me, these are all come from very different places, and that means we have to do different things to address them. So if you got a question wrong because you were unprepared, well, why? What happened where you didn't see that bit of material, right? That section or whatever. Why wasn't that part of your preparation? And then how can you change that for the next go around, right? How can you make sure that you change however you practice, or maybe it's a matter of looking at the syllabus again and realizing, oh yeah, it did say this section here or whatever. Maybe it was an announcement you just totally forgot or didn't see, right? Use that then to kind of improve what you do for next time. Conceptual error is much more kind of severe. That's saying that you kind of had a misunderstanding of how a whole concept, whole idea worked. So that requires a little bit more legwork of figuring out, okay, well, what was that? What is the kind of correct idea here? Taking your exam maybe a day or two after it's been handed back, taking your exam to your faculty members' office hours or student hours, that could be really helpful to figure out, which of these errors you made. And if it was a conceptual error, your faculty member can kind of step in and say, yes, this is what it is, instead of this other idea. Computational is, I flipped up some negative signs, or I didn't square in the right order of things. For me, it's really a matter where you rushed through this and you weren't thinking carefully through it, or did you just not know how to do it, right? It was a distance formula and you kind of just didn't know to square the internal differences. So if it was you were just rushed about it, then you should kind of rethink how you take those tests in the future. If you just didn't know how to do it, kind of similar to the conceptual error, right? Go to your faculty member, go to tutoring, try to figure out what that was, what it actually is. A careless error, again, it could be a negative or something. It could be that you just didn't read the directions in full, right? That happens a lot, unfortunately. And it happens because students are stressed out when they take these tests. If you make a careless error like that, address that with the next one, right? Make a goal for yourself saying, I will read every single question before I answer any question, right? That's a good thing to do in general. But if you are making these kind of careless errors because you forgot something, you need to take steps to address that the next time you do it. Okay, so final exams are incredibly important, you can imagine. They are summative assessments. They are meant to determine if you know enough to move on to the next class. They are not about you being a good or bad person, about a straight A student or not. They are literally about, do you know enough material so that you can be successful in your next math class? This is incredibly important for our STEM students who have to take anywhere from, I don't know, 6 to like 9 math classes over their academic career here at Clark. It's a lot. It is incredibly a lot. And you need to know college algebra before moving on, college algebra and college trigonometry before moving on to calculus, right? We use those functions as kind of just a language at that point, and we really can't kind of still be struggling with, is it sine or cosine that starts at 0 or 1? We really need to know that material. So for final exams, you want to be able to show that right, the whole collection of material in a class. very basically, know the details, right? First week, your syllabus should have information about the final exam. Know that. Put that in your calendar. Make sure you prepare by that time. Review each chapter or week of material. This is going to be really hard to do if you're not organized. If you have all your papers everywhere, that's not going to help. I would highly recommend that I don't right now. Some kind of binder where you have everything kind of organized here. This is actually for a committee I'm on, and I love having all my stuff for a project, a class, a committee in one binder, because then I can go through and kind of review it as I need to. So if you are organized, great. You can kind of go through each week of the material, writing yourself notes, review, start early. Again, just like with assessments, this should not be something you're kind of doing in addition. This should have been something you've been kind of doing all throughout. But for final exams, yeah, you might want to spend some time kind of reviewing everything. Thanksgiving is a great time to do this for college students because we do have, a few, like that's 2 weeks before finals. That's a great time to start with that. Give yourself time and space. You need to be really clear with the people in your life that you have obligations to study and prepare for your finals. People understand college students needing to study and getting ready for final exams. Tell your parents, right? Tell them, hey, I'm not going to be able to go to that, Thanksgiving dessert, that Friday of Thanksgiving. I'm not going to be able to go and, go to Aunt Robin's or whatever for dessert or something. No, I'm not going to be able to participate in Black Friday or whatever it is, right? For things that are not like the core part of your Thanksgiving holiday, you may want to think, I might want to use that time to think about preparing for some of my classes, or at least setting it up, right? Setting up, note pages or papers, or build a plan for yourself over that Thanksgiving weekend to figure out, what you want to do. But also that, your work knows this, your friends know that. One big thing I really push is that I really want students to have something fun planned after finals. This can be a really good motivator to realize, like, yes, my life is really hard right now in this week or so, but I have planned something for myself where I can kind of relax and do something different. Whether this is going to the coast or, headed up to the mountain for some skiing, if it's hiking, if it's playing video games, if it's, whatever it is, make a plan for yourself to say, I'm going to spend that entire day doing whatever I want to do. For me, it's usually like trips with my family and knowing that, yeah, this term is really hard for whatever reason, but, after this, I have something fun planned. That can really kind of help yourself realize, like, the moment is hard, but overall life is good. Ultimately, learning is about you and your choices. Clark College staff and faculty are here to help you make good choices. We can't make those choices for you, and yet, we want to support you in doing what you can, because we want you to succeed. We want you to be successful, and we want you to learn this material because we think it'll help you in your life. That's about it for me. Here's my info. Excuse my voice. It's got a little froggy. Okay. So I did get a couple questions in the survey. And what questions do you have about your math courses when quizzes and exams are due and assignments are due? So I'm going to focus on my class. And if we go to the syllabus, down here, I have this tentative course schedule. And you can see here, I have it as week and day and weekday, event, homework due at 10 p.m., reading assignments due at 11 a.m., quizzes, and then projects. So today is October 4th, and you can see here it's class session 3. Reading assignments for chapter 2 were due at 11. And then we have a quiz 1 there on class session 3. So we had our first quiz, or quiz 1, I should say. Quiz 0 was kind of a syllabus quiz. Yeah, I had very good questions on hey, does quiz 1 contain the chapter 2 material? And in fact, it does not. It did not contain the chapter 2.1, 2.2, or 2.4 material, but it did contain the chapter 1 material. And for me, it was like big ideas. That's what I really cared about this time. You can see here, right, we have, so all your courses should have a tentative course schedule. That should definitely be there. If they don't, some don't. However, Canvas will also kind of like collect all the different assignment due dates and put them all here. You can see this last Tuesday was a big day for us. We had a huge number of reading assignments due before class. And so you can kind of see that this actually has all the due dates in kind of a different way. If you also go to your course calendar, this is a really helpful tool because this will show you all the different due dates for all of your classes. For me, it'll just show this class I'm teaching right now. But as a student, I imagine seeing kind of where all the different due dates line up will help you realize, oh yeah, this Friday I have like 8 things due. I better get that done early. So you can see here, it's kind of hard to see. Okay, yeah. So you can see here on the 4th, here we are. My class here will have all these different kind of components. If you click on other parts of your course, or excuse me, if you click on other links here, these should be other courses you have. And so it'll kind of layer on top of each other, like when all your assignments are due. That could be really helpful to kind of managing your time. So hopefully that was kind of like 3 different ways that you kind of see when assignments are due and, all that other stuff. If our student has questions on that, feel free to post them in the chat. But they also responded, what questions do you have about taking college courses? The end goal. Sometimes I'm not sure what classes I need to take for a certain degree and often consult advising. I think that's great. I think you absolutely should do that. I also think that the course catalog you enter under is the definitive thing you should be looking at. So if you go to catalog current, when you start in a higher educational institution, you were bound by the catalog you started under. So if you hit print options here, you can download the entire catalog for Clark College. If you started this fall or during the academic year 2022-2023, including this last summer, but this contains all of the requirements for you to earn all of these different degrees. Requirements will change over time, but since you entered the college with this catalog, this is now your catalog. You only need to satisfy these requirements. It doesn't matter if things change or improve or get worse or better or whatever. You just need to fulfill these requirements. So if I go to Associate in Science Track 2, it'll tell you exactly that you need to fulfill the communication skills requirement with English 101, English Comp 1. It'll also say you need to finish the quantitative skills, symbolic reasoning skills by completing Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. It'll give you a humanities option. So page 292 will have a whole range of different things. It's humongous, this list, tons of different stuff. It'll tell you all the different classes you're required to take. And this was done primarily to ensure that students, one, get enough kind of understanding. You can see pre-major program requirements, physics, right? You can take physics. You could also take engineering physics. You can take, you would need to take general chemistry, or some other kind of science class with a lab, environmental sciences, and so on. This is done because degrees at Clark College are granted according to our accreditation in line with the State Board of Community and Technical Colleges, SBCTC. They have requirements that students must fulfill certain kind of distribution requirements, these general education things, communication skills, quantitative humanities, social sciences, and so on, in order to be a well-rounded human individual citizen in the United States. Yeah, you have to take a lot of other classes other than the actual area of study. And yet that is really important, as we have seen, where many people who do have technical degrees are doing things that are really questionable about the environment, or about race, about so many other things in the world, that having some understanding of these other aspects of the world could be helpful in those endeavors, right? um, so, my advice to all college students is download the catalog you entered under. That is your guide. Save this as a PDF, on a thumb drive somewhere, save it in multiple places. Make sure you have access to it at all times, in case requirements do change, and they will. All right. Does our student have any other questions before we sign off here? I know we're a little past time. Oh, yep. That one. Right. I guess I'd say, academic plans in general at Clark. This is just kind of a list of all the different things we have available. There is also kind of the Associate in Arts General Transfer. So if a student is unsure or unclear as to what they want to do with the, what kind of major they want to do at a four-year college, this is probably a really good option for them in terms of just getting kind of all of their general education done, but also kind of having a focus. What was that assignment view that listed it by day, not the calendar? Might be hard to communicate this over Zoom. No, absolutely. See, Zoom is being a little funny. That is actually found if we go to courses, we go to our course. Oh, no, it's not our course. Excuse me. Apologize. There we go. And you go to syllabus. So again, this had the calendar, the tentative course schedule, and then this had the actual like day by day view. Some of these might not be correct. Do check with your faculty member about it. Yeah, some of these are definitely not correct. But this will just be another place for you to access, when assignments are due. All right, everybody. Thank you so much to our student for participating. I really did appreciate your questions. Thank you for coming. And if you do have further questions, you can always find me around. Here is my obviously email, personal email, or personal phone number, office phone number. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, absolutely.